Well, a very, very happy Monday morning to everyone, and welcome to the John Quintero Show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Glad you could join me. We got a great guest today. We got one of my favorite guys today to talk baseball, and we're going to talk about his journey. And that's our buddy Dylan Hernandez, formerly of the LA Times, now going to be going to work for the brand new California Post. But before we get to Dylan, and we'll talk a lot about the National League West, we'll talk about the Dodgers, of course, and anything going on in baseball with Dylan. And I'm very excited to hear about this California Post. We'll do that in a minute. But I want to remind everyone, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Please like, please share, please tell a friend. And if you'd like to help be a part of the program, if you'd like to join our Gold Glove membership, to help us pay for some of the expenses on the program, $2.99 a month, and you'll be a Gold Glove member. Hey, we're gonna get out to your questions. We're gonna get out to our coach's mailbag. We got three good ones from our last program, but I want to remind everyone that it was just announced late last week. The San Diego Padres are going to put on a celebration of life for my longtime friend and radio partner on Padres postgame, Randy Jones, who passed away a few weeks back. Randy, unbelievable. We all know about Randy Jones, okay? We know his history of what he did for the Padre organization, but we also know his history in our San Diego community. I mean, there's nobody that gave more time as a professional athlete to our city. And I hope all of you will come out on Saturday morning, January 24th. The gates open at 10. The celebration of life will get underway at 11 o'clock. For more information, you can go to Padres.com. You do have to have digital tickets, and of course, it will be free. A lot of you younger folks maybe don't know the history of Randy Jones, but if you're a Padres fan or baseball fan in San Diego or Southern California, he grew up in Brea, was born in Fullerton, but was raised in Brea, played at Brea Olinda High School, Chapman College. And so if you're a baseball fan and you remember the name Randy Jones or heard about Randy Jones, come to the celebration because we owe it to Randy to celebrate his life in a very, very big way. And like I said, he was my partner for years, but also a very, very close friend. And it stung. And he battled hard. He had a variety of ailments late in his life. He had throat cancer back in 2017 that he overcame, but his body just flat out wore out. And so hopefully he'll come out on January 24th. Okay, with that, let's get to our guest. And this is going to be a very interesting interview because I don't know a lot about the California Post. I think a lot of us are going to find out about it coming up on January 26th. And I think if you're a sports fan, the more you hear about this, the more you're going to get excited. I mean, this California Post is going to cover California sports, from what I understand. But we bring on our buddy, a longtime employee of the LA Times, of course, a great columnist. And I liked it when he made the announcement. He goes, I know a lot of you have been waiting for this announcement that I'll no longer be a columnist. But you know what? Let me tell you, the fans of Dylan Hernandez far outweigh people that have a Twitter account or a Facebook account or whatever kind of account. You know, a lot of people have keyboard courage when they put up a face of some clown or whatever. But this gentleman is one of the best in the business. That's why he got recruited to the California Post. Dylan Hernandez joins us on the John Quintero Show. And Dylan, welcome. Thanks for the time. And man, I'll tell you what, this had to be not only a tough decision in a lot of ways because you're a kid that grew up in LA. Writing for the LA Times is like the utopia for a kid that grows up in LA. And I'm sure you had some nice family discussions about this, moving from one building to another.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, right, it's pretty telling probably the fact that like the first phone call that I made, when I made the decision, even before I told the sports editor at the times that I was leaving, was to Bill Plaschke, right? Plasch was the guy, when I was in high school, I still remember being in architecture class, not doing my work, reading the sports page. And Plasch was the guy, and Plasch was the guy, I think we wanted to be like. And they say don't meet your heroes. In many cases in life, that's been true. But not only him, but God, David Wharton, Bill Shaken, Chris Dufresne, Sam Farmer, Gary Klein. I mean, I could just keep going on. And TJ Simers, obviously, became a very, very close friend of mine. All these guys, getting to know them, the fact that it's like, wow, like I'm, every now and then it's still kind of weird, right? Like Brasky's my friend now, and so, that was kind of the, right. I mean, it's the kind of place that you dreamed of working for. I mean, if I would have been honest, when I first got into this business or started, in college, moving in this direction, I would have been happy covering soccer or boxing for the LA Times, right? And the fact that they gave me bigger responsibilities by letting me, cover the Dodgers for as long as they did, and then, wow, then they give me a column. It's like, what did I do to deserve this, right? It's it felt almost kind of too good to be true, and so from that standpoint, it kind of was hard. That said, I think obviously the media landscape's gone through a lot of changes. And what was really exciting to me about this place is that you really get a feeling that they're going for it, right? It wasn't, I think, they were talking to both me and to Jack Harris, right, our Dodgers beat guy at the Times, together. And I think we both expressed a pretty strong, desire to continue working together. I mean, I was very kind of flat out like, hey, this is, I mean, Jack might have come regardless, but I was very clear, like, hey, I'm not moving if Jack doesn't come, and I think, so they made it right. The way they kind of went out of their way, it felt like, to make sure that we both got there. This morning, Ben Bolch, our great, UCLA beat writer at the Times, he just announced that he's coming over. I think, again, we've had some great hires in basketball. There's one that's going to be coming soon, about our NFL, the guy that's going to be doing our NFL stuff. He should be making an announcement soon. And so it's just kind of, it's a bit of a different energy, right? I think, most media organizations right now, you're just kind of feeling like, okay, it's just kind of a hanging on type of feel. It's like, okay, let's try not to, right, cost anybody else their jobs. Let's try to kind of, but that feeling that I had, I guess, when I first got to the Times, where it's like, okay, we're going to go, say cover the Dodgers in the playoffs, or, the Rams on their way to the Super Bowl, and that wasn't that long ago, actually. But that feeling of like, hey, we're trying to accomplish something. We're trying to do something really cool here, as a team, kind of, right? We all do our parts, and we're going to be able to kind of put something special together. This place is giving me that feeling. And so that's what I'm kind of most excited about.
Dylan, for the fans out there, we're starting to slowly hear more about it. There hasn't been a lot of publicity, and it's going to go, I guess your first article will be coming out on January 26th with everyone else. But now, is this going to be like The Athletic online, or are we going to have hard copies that we can go and subscribe to, or go to the local convenience store and purchase? What do we know right now? And I know not everything has been completely decided in that area as far as distribution, but what are you hearing right now?
Yeah, we're going to be printing 7 days a week, right? And so, this is a tabloid, right? And obviously this is, right, it's going to be the West Coast kind of sister publication of the New York Post. I think there are going to be times that, right, we're going to be kind of working with the staff there, right? I mean, so, actually, I think the first person who recommended me for the job to the people in New York was Joel Sherman, right? The great New York Post baseball columnist, and John Heyman, right? And, we've kind of been in communication about how we're going to cover, for example, the WBC, right? So certain things we'll even be working together. I'm guessing, right, if we hear something about one of their teams, we'll be sharing that information with them. If they hear something about our teams, they'll be reaching out to us, I'm sure. But yeah, it's going to be, and the Post has a certain type of, right, very kind of direct, kind of snappy attitude to it. I think, and I think it's going to be kind of different than the Times, right? The Times, it's a paper of record, right? It's always kind of, a little bit more toned down, maybe. I mean, I'm not sure I was, but, I think the paper was that. And I think, hopefully we're going to, kind of get to the point and, get right to the topics that people want to talk about. hopefully really aggressive, good reporting. I think if you look at the New York Post, what I thought was really cool was, kind of, I think throughout the season, there were a lot of rumors going around in baseball about kind of the discord in that clubhouse, right? Particularly with, with Juan Soto, maybe in Lindor not quite getting along. And at the end of the day, the New York Post was the paper that was able to get enough of that on record to be able to write a story about it, right? And so, I'm sure, right, we will be the type of, the New York Post also, right, the back page, right, is the sports cover, basically. It's kind of known for these kind of big headlines. So I'm sure, we might slightly overreact to, a bad game here or there. But I think the basis of it is still going to just be kind of solid, good, hard-nosed reporting journalism. So again, that's kind of something else that kind of appeals to me too, because, I do think that, again, as the landscape has kind of changed, right? And look, I always got along with the guys that I competed with on the beat, but there was still kind of a competitive type energy, right? And now, again, I think because there's, honestly, just kind of so much like hopelessness out there, I kind of feel in our business, that it's become less that way, right? I think people are just kind of feeling like, let me just get through today and we'll be okay. The one thing about the New York Post, they've always had one of the great sports sections, and I think one of the reasons is because of how aggressive they are. And I think the goal here is to maybe bring some of that energy that they have in New York out to the West Coast and cover sports in that way.
Well, let me say this to you, and you may totally disagree with me on this, and that's okay. And of course, I'm looking at it from a San Diego lens, going to the ballpark. And I know a lot of the papers are struggling locally, regionally, and nationally. But when I go to the ballpark, I see a lot of people that are writers nowadays. They've kind of lost their passion. They still are dedicated. They show up every day, but they almost seem to be miserable sometimes dealing with the managers, the general managers, the players. And I also think a part of that isn't just going on with what maybe they're dealing with in their workplace, but it's also the way I think the media is being treated by a lot of organizations. Like, you guys are kind of a pain to us, and we don't really want to give you, what maybe we once gave you. And I also think that a lot of the PR people for these ball clubs, not all, I don't want to make a blanket statement here, but a lot of the PR people that have to deal with the players to the media, they're afraid of the players.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, right? There's just kind of a bunch of stuff, and I think, again, right, to be honest, right, when I first got the Post, Ryan Kostek, the sports editor here, when he first reached out to me, to be honest, like inside I was kind of thinking, I'll listen, right, but you're not going to leave the LA Times, right? It was kind of my thought there. But I think you're exactly right? It's just kind of, the energy is just kind of, it's changed, right? Like you said, you're dealing with so many things, right? Like you said, the kind of the, I don't know, the insecure nature of your employment, to, like you said, at the ballpark, it is different, right? I do think that teams now, because of social media and stuff, now they have the means to be able to communicate directly to the consumer, and I think for certain things, that's actually not a bad way to go in sometimes, right? But there are also times, and I think that the one thing that that I think a lot of teams don't understand is that, if we're taking the time to be critical of something, I think it implies, right, not directly, but it actually implies that this subject that we're criticizing is important enough to be criticized. Like, take, for example, like arena football, right? Which I used to cover, by the way, in San Jose. And generally speaking, like arena football, like you watch a broadcast, nobody is ever criticizing anything, right? Everything is like super positive. And I think when you watch that, you kind of know, like, okay, they're trying to sell me something here, right? This isn't like a real, like, this isn't meant to be taken seriously, and I do think that, like, that's kind of one thing that we do is, like, look, like, teams are going to mess up. Teams make bad decisions sometimes, right? And by us asking them these things, and right, if they can kind of answer, like, kind of in a suitable way, I actually think it kind of elevates their product in a way, right? It implies that this thing is important, right, enough to warrant criticism. And frankly, I think you kind of need that when you're charging, nowadays, especially they're charging hundreds of dollars to go watch like a sporting event. And, it's interesting too, like if you've been right, like out of the country and to see the way like, some other countries treat their sports, right? Obviously soccer is kind of like the way we treat sports here. It's like religion, right? And so you can charge kind of frankly whatever you want, right? Because it's bigger. It's not just the game that you're going to go watch. It has greater importance, right? And I just remember going to Australia. The Dodgers opened there one year, and a group of us went to a rugby game, right? And we're like, okay, this is only time in our lives, like let's get the best seats possible. So we go to the ticket booth, and we're like four tickets, like right in the middle, right there. And the girl who was working the counter, her eyes just bulged, and she's like, "Are you sure?" And we're like, "Wait, how much are these?" And she goes, $25, right? And the thing is, for her, it was inconceivable that somebody would pay $25 to watch a game, right? And so, what is it that allows teams to charge like hundreds of dollars? It's that this isn't just a game. This has more importance to it, right? And I think we really, you're talking about like Randy Jones, for example, right, coming into this thing and kind of the importance of going to this thing. Yeah, because you know what, in our country, sports really are something that it's not just recreation. It's a touchstone for an entire community a lot of times, right? And and when you take that type of position, yes, like you should be kind of held accountable, right? We do have to you have a responsibility to your community, and it's our job a lot of times to kind of try to hold you accountable there. And so teams obviously don't like that, right? And so they're like, okay, well, because they don't want to get criticized at all. And I think, in all fairness to them, like I think that they're worried about their own jobs, right? Okay, if you're a GM and you make some bad moves and like you get questioned in a way that makes you look bad, like you might get fired. But at that point, they're not kind of seeing the bigger picture, which is that I do think that the media in a lot of ways bestows legitimacy again on what other business has its own section by itself, right? I mean, that's the thing. Sports are a business, right? Most newspapers have a business section. This is the one business that has its own section. And so, yeah, you're right. And I think that, the old school PR guys, I think kind of get that, right? They see the bigger picture. And those guys, generally speaking, as long as you don't jump on the owner, the guy that's writing his check, he'll be okay with it. And right. And everything else he understands. That's just kind of part of the way this goes. But yeah, I think, teams, because of, again, their social media stuff, the internet, they feel they can kind of control the content a little bit more, have a lot of times like close down access for us, make things a little bit harder.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into talking about the Dodgers, tell the fans that are tuned in right now what all are going to be your responsibilities. And I guess the first thing, are you going to cover strictly baseball? Are you going to cover boxing? You're going to write what are you doing actually?
Okay, so I think my title technically is senior sports reporter, but I'm basically a columnist, right? And so, they've been pretty open about, hey, if you want to go cover something here or there, like go ahead, right? You're kind of free to do what you want. That said, I think when they started talking to me, and I think the reason they started talking to me, right, I'm pretty sure Jack and I were the first two. That's not true. We were the first two. Maybe a couple of GA writers have been hired, but like we're the first two kind of established people, I think, in the market that they hired. And I think the reason for that was because they understand that if they want to win in Los Angeles, they have to win on the Dodger beat, right? And so I do think that my focus is going to be on the Dodgers, right? And even if they give me the freedom to do other things, I was telling Jack, I think that it's really important that we dominate, that it's a beat that we dominate, right? And I think the first thing that we have is the most important. It's the most popular team in town right now. And I think our goal for year one is to make sure that everybody knows that the California Post is the best place to come to if you want to read about the Dodgers, right? So, like you said, I think there doesn't seem to be a ton of awareness, right? At least like in LA, that this product is coming. So that's going to be part of the battle is, okay, first of all, we got to make sure people are aware we exist, and hopefully, again, our work is good enough that people decide, I hate to put it this way, but right, longtime readers of ours in the LA Times decide, we still want to read Dylan, we still want to read Jack, so we're going to go read the California Post. I think that's kind of the goal. And so, I think while I might have the freedom, right, and then I think maybe as time goes on, I'll start branching off more into different things. I think me personally right now, year one, I think I'm going to be mostly writing Dodger columns.
So you and Jack Harris are going to work the Dodger beat.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you'll do game stories, or he'll do game stories, or, how are you going to break that up?
Yeah. So he's going to do mostly the news, right? I think there's obviously going to be, just kind of where we are now, right? And, various papers have, right? The emphasis will be less on the games themselves, especially in the regular season, and probably more on stuff that's going on, right? And again, I actually don't think our roles will change all that much from what we were doing, frankly, at the Times. Jack is going to handle the news. I will be the one giving my opinion on that news, right?
Okay.
So, we will also, we had at the Times, we had a semi-popular video series called Dodgers Debate, right? It was me, Jack, and Bill Plaschke. Once a week, we would record a video that would be posted on YouTube and stuff. And so we're going to be bringing that now. Obviously, we will lose Bill because Bill's still at the Times, but Jack and I will have like a regular podcast too. So, I think we kind of realized the importance of that. Again, it seemed to do pretty well. So, while losing Plaschke or not having Plaschke on, it's going to hurt. We're going to hope to keep that up too.
Dylan, Rupert Murdoch owns it, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. With that being said, will there be a TV component to the California Post?
I think there's still kind of, so the last I checked, for example, we were still kind of in the part of hiring like video people, for example, right? I think I don't know that. I'm guessing that there might be. Again, we're on the Fox lot right now. I mean, I'm in the California Post office. You walk outside, you kind of have that, like, the fake New York set, right? The block and a half, the facade thingy. So yeah, the Fox Sports building is like, literally like a stone's throw over. I mean, I probably can't reach it because I can't throw a baseball very far, but
well, you throw hard, just not getting there.
If you threw, you could probably hit the building from here, And so, and I think that again, that's kind of part of the reason this is exciting, right? It's like they're putting resources behind this, and I think, again, one thing that newspapers have had problems with is we were doing it for so long, in one way, and it was very hard to adjust, right? And big companies, kind of generally speaking, kind of take a while, just to kind of implement something. We talk about that Dodgers Debate video series, that we were doing. We've been doing that since like Andy McCullough was on the beat. I mean, it's like 10 years ago, right? And I think, was it last year maybe? We finally got it to a point where we could make it like a regular weekly type of series, right? And so, it's just, being at a traditional kind of media place, I do think brings certain, again, we're just kind of slow to move, I think, sometimes. And that's kind of what's fun about this place, is you kind of get the sense that, we might be a little bit more nimble on our feet, frankly, because we are a startup, right? So, again, I think if, an opportunity comes up to do stuff like that, I'm guessing it's going to happen, right? And, again, there won't be any kind of resistance internally to make it happen because, we don't have 100 years behind us to point at and say like, hey, we've always done it this way.
Okay, now it's the California Post, and I totally get focusing in on the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But what about the Angels? What about the Padres? What about Oakland? What about San Francisco? Are they going to have writers for all those teams too? How are the other teams in California going to be covered?
Yeah, so that's a little bit above my pay grade. I do know we're starting to look for reporters to cover a couple of the Bay Area teams, at least, right? Like Warriors, Niners. Right now, again, and it's probably a function of like where we are in the season, but we're going to hire, again, like kind of one, like an NFL columnist. And then, I do think in the plan in the future will be to kind of hire beat guys and stuff. So I think this is all kind of, I think that their plans obviously to kind of expand this, right, grow the staff and kind of hire for more positions. But I think it's also going to be a bit of and again, I'm totally talking out of turn here, but
Work in progress.
but my guess, right? Yeah, we're gonna kind of see what works and what doesn't, right? And kind of depend on that, kind of go along because we've had some meetings where we were talking about, okay, like, kind of the next round of hires, like what are we looking for? And as we were talking, something that I think, maybe wasn't on the board, all of a sudden it's like, well, no, actually, maybe we need a position like this, right? So I'm guessing again, I think we're going to be pretty flexible, and I think the good thing right now is I think we got some great hires in early, and I think that because of that, there's going to be some momentum, and you know, I mean, Jack and I kind of took the plunge first, so we've already, right. Whoever comes next isn't going to have to be the first guy to make that leap, I think. And I think they'll have some confidence in kind of making that jump because, again, I think we already have a pretty good staff lined up here.
Well, I know what you bring to the table, and I've read a lot of Jack Harris's stuff over the last few years, and you guys, great hires for the California Post, and wish you the best of luck with that. Aside from Dave Roberts becoming a partner in a Mexican restaurant with Adrian Gonzalez, what else is going on with the Dodgers right now?
Wait, I missed this. You just scooped us, Coach. When did this happen?
I don't know. He had something on Twitter doing a commercial for, I don't know, was it Trace Dose or
Oh,
Trace
all
or
right.
something. Him and Adrian are teaming up on something.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And I mean, both of those guys, obviously, Dave, great wine guy, right? His wife's a sommelier, and Adrian knows his
Red
food for
Stitch
sure.
wine, right?
Yeah, yeah. And Adrian knows his wine. He knows his food, man. So, yeah, I guess that's something for me to visit this maybe before spring training.
Hey, I got to say this. Dave Roberts, does he ever get an off day during the off season? This guy is everywhere. The other night he was at courtside at the Laker game. We've seen him at Ram games on the sidelines. I mean, he goes everywhere. I mean, he gets invited to go to Okinawa every year now.
Yeah, well, he's a natural extrovert, right? It's weird because I'm not like shy by any means, but I think like I'm naturally introverted in the sense that, right? Whenever like I have social interactions, like I get exhausted, right? Like if after, right, I go out to like lunch with friends, it's like I got a nap for like 3 hours, right? I've spent so much of myself. Dave is like a total extrovert, right? I mean, he is talking to people seems to give him more energy, so yeah, on one hand it's work. I don't know if he considers it work though. He seems to like, I mean, he likes people,
Right.
and so yeah. But you're right, he's everywhere right now. And what I think is kind of cool is that kind of earlier in his managerial tenure, things didn't go right with the team. He got blamed a lot, and there were years, and Coach, and I have talked about this over the years, right? I mean, I think a lot of, especially kind of pre-Ohtani. Ohtani is basically just printing money for them right now, right? It's changed the team's situation financially. But before that, the team wasn't, they didn't go after Bryce Harper. There were guys that they left on it's too expensive. They were very kind of cautious in the way they spent money. And, as a result, I think, that was responsible for a lot of their problems in October, right? Like superstars win in October, and frankly, Mookie Betts, that was the game changer for them. They finally went out and they just said, you know what, we're going to get the best player available. It was via trade. They got Mookie Betts. They won the World Series. But, again, a lot over the years, Dave's taken a lot of crap from a lot of people, a lot of the fans blamed him for things. And, to see him, I guess, having gotten through that, and not just kind of be accepted, but to become this like really beloved figure, not just here, but also in Japan, I think is really cool, and you can kind of see again, like he really enjoys that. I think he never, I guess, shied away from, I mean, I think he accepted the criticism as part of the job. That said, I think, again, Dave, his personality, he's a guy that likes to be liked, right? Most people like to be liked, and yeah, so for him to kind of get that, that type of reception now, and right, the fact that people want him everywhere, right, the fact that like he's not getting booed when he goes places, or and actually, frankly, last year Jack Harris did a great story. You can still find this online about how this has even put him in touch more like with his Japanese heritage, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, he grew up here in the U.S. at a time when, my mother's from Japan, but there were frankly a lot of Japanese kids in Southern California at the time, right? Enough to where there was like a Saturday Japanese school for kids whose parents were like here on business for 2-3 years. And, so my mom put me in there, and it gave me opportunities to really kind of be a part of that culture. But, Dave didn't have that. And, so at this age, I think for him, right, that he goes back to Japan now, and they're proud that he's Japanese, right? And I think that's really cool.
Well, and you may not know this, but in 1987, I was given a job by Irv Harrigan, a Hall of Fame radio guy. They were doing the tailgate talk show for the leading into the Charger game, and I had just gotten into the business. And Mr. Lynch, who hired me, said, "Hey, I want you to go out and I want you to interview a high school kid and a high school coach each week, and we're going to play it on this pregame show." So I went out to Rancho Buena Vista, interviewed the head football coach, Craig Bell, who I knew because he'd been at San Diego. And then I let him choose what player he wanted. And we walked over to the gym. We went into this little room aside by the gym, and there was this 10th grade quarterback by the name of Dave Roberts. And Dave Roberts is the first athlete of pro or college or any athlete I ever interviewed actually on Southern California radio on 690.
Wow.
And I got him his agent, John Boggs, when he was having problems when he was in AAA with Cleveland. His agent wasn't that good. And I told Dave, I go, I know this guy named John Boggs. So Boggsy is representing him to this day. And so we've got a close relationship. And, he's unbelievably great teammate. When he had his number retired at Rancho Buena Vista, I was the MC for that. So, I got a long history with Dave. And, unfortunately, his dad passed away, I want to say about 6 or 7 years ago now. And I was at the funeral that day. But his dad was a great guy. His mother, Japanese lady, worked for years at Camp Pendleton. His father was in the Marine, retired Marine. Great family. I mean, just super people. And I'm so happy for his success. I wish he'd let the Padres win one, though, occasionally. But the bottom line, Dave Roberts is a great human being.
Yeah, he really is. And I think that the relationship that he has with some of these players, right, it's really, and I go back to, the one that I thought was potentially problematic was not this past year, but the year before, right, in 24, where, they had to get Mookie Betts to go back to right field, and that's after, the guy that played short. Now he got kind of hurt, right? But I do wonder if that goes as smoothly, because the kind of columns I write, I'm looking for trouble all the time, right? So,
right.
I'm thinking like, oh man, this has a chance to like blow up badly, right? They got to handle this the right way. And the fact that like Mookie was so kind of understanding, I mean, on one hand, I do think it speaks a lot to like who Mookie Betts is as a player and a person. But I also think that the relationship with Dave played a big part in that because of the trust that he had for Dave, right? He knew that they were just trying to win a World Series, that Dave wasn't trying to screw him or anything.
Make him look bad.
Interesting, after the season, Mookie has his own podcast on YouTube, I think through Bleacher Report or something, and he had Dave on, and I didn't realize like how close they were, right? That after games, when Mookie's like, driving home or home, he would call Dave to talk about stuff, right? I mean, it really kind of sounded like Dave was a huge source of emotional and psychological support for Mookie. And my guess is there are probably other relationships like that he has in that clubhouse that we just kind of don't know about because, things kind of get, right? Obviously, Dave's respectful of people's privacy and stuff. But, I think, and the fact that, too, right, it's just you've seen, and again, we saw like in this last World Series run, just, they're down, they come back, and you get the feeling that these guys aren't just doing it for themselves, right? They're doing it for the others. When Rojas hit that home run, I just saw something where he kind of talked about like, I wanted to do this, or I wanted to get on base at least for Shohei, right? That Ohtani had carried us all year, and now, I think he hadn't had a hit like in a month or something at that point. It's like, I want to do something, and next thing he hits a game tying home run. But yeah, you see, I think the culture that they have there, and look, it's kind of hard to tell, right? This is the truth, right? Is that like you're looking at it from the outside and you're like, well, whatever. Like they got the right guys there, they're all good players, just. But how many teams have we seen, right, that are supposed to be this collection of great players? I just talked about the Mets earlier, and man, something goes wrong, it goes wrong badly, and I guess the biggest compliment I think I could pay Roberts is the fact that in his years here, we have not seen that at all in the Dodgers clubhouse. And maybe, sure, you could probably argue, hey, this manager might be, more analytically inclined or this or that or whatever it is. But the fact that, again, there have been no major fires here. And there have been many times, I think, that there could have been some big fires, right? I mean, just some of the person that, right, some things that kind of have happened over the course of time here. And these have never become issues, right? And I think that in that case, you gotta credit the guy in charge.
Dylan, I think the last 3 years, I mean, you could go back and look at the last 3 years, and I know they've won 2 in a row, but go back 3 years. The way he's had to navigate this pitching has been unbelievable because, everybody will talk about last year, the year before, but go back 3 years ago when they won another division title. They didn't go real deep in the playoffs, but he's had to do this year after year after year with his starting staff.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, right? It's like kind of that game 7, like bringing Yamamoto back on no rest. I'm not sure how everybody, you know what I mean? I really think that was just kind of Dave, like, hey, like I believe in this guy, and yeah, sure, we might have Roki Sasaki back there, but you know what? This is the guy. This is my guy, and I'm going to ride him. Yeah, you're right, and that's not. People kind of forget that, it's again because they won and they just got Edwin Diaz, so now you're kind of thinking, their pitching's fine, but like the truth is like it hasn't been fine a lot of these years, right? There've been. As good as the Dodgers rotation was in the postseason, the reality is that a lot of those guys spent a lot of the season injured. You're mixing in guys from AAA, right? I mean, all their young pitchers that have gone down over the years. The problems in especially the bullpen, and I think the way, again, they've kind of, or Dave has gone about just kind of dealing with this. And it's just like, okay, because there's some years, obviously, you're going to win the division by like a lot, right? And some years you're going to have to kind of slog your way through it a little bit more, maybe, right? I mean, this year, the regular season, frankly, it cost, right? They had to play an extra round, basically, right? They had to play the wild card round because they couldn't get a bye. But, it's kind of calculating all that. And, okay, how much do we pitch, right? Push Ohtani when he's just coming back from Tommy John, and right, it turned out obviously that at the end of the day, I mean, it's a results-driven business, and the results were good at the end. And maybe some of those games again that he sacrificed in the regular season, paid dividends in October.
I'm still amazed that they won the World Series the way they won it in the last couple innings. Rojas hits the home run. Rojas makes that incredible play, thrown to the plate. Will Smith barely keeps his toe on the base. And then Pages runs over Kike Hernandez like a defensive back going after a football to save the game. I mean, those 3 plays are still like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I think, it's funny, right? Because I think, when you talk about, people remember moments, right? And I think, if you can even remember like one moment, if it really kind of like, if you remember how you felt at that moment, like one moment in like a series, I think it's considered like, right, it becomes a historic series. You have 2 of those moments, it's like a great series. And this one, I mean, just how many moments were there?
Well, he had 3 in like one
just
inning.
in that game alone. That was crazy, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I remember after game 7, Jack Harris and I are heading back to the hotel, or in a Uber, And Jack goes, "Do you remember that the bench is cleared?" Like
Oh, that's right.
I totally forgot about that.
That's right.
Right? Like there's a benches clearing incident in a game 7, and we could by the end of the game we forgot that it had happened. Right? That's how much stuff like went on in that game. I mean, it was. I don't think we're gonna just see anything like that again. Just right, the odds of I mean, any one of those defensive plays, like you said, the Will Smith barely kind of right stayed on the bag, the Rojas play at the plate, the Pajes play. I mean, those are like 3 huge defensive plays
And David
that we're
just
going to
putting
remember for.
Pajes in the game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that was I mean, again, right? That's pretty crazy. I think and I mean, and another one too, right? Mookie Betts, who again, right, has been making this move from right field to shortstop, and this year he sticks as a shortstop. Last ball gets hit to him at short. It's a kind of a really fitting ending, I think, for the World Series too. And yeah, I think I think one thing that I'm going to be interested, going to spring training, is talking to all these guys. Like, what is it that you remember, right? Because I think for every guy, it's going to be just a little bit different. Obviously they're going to be, and I'm guessing a lot of these guys, their lives change. Like Andy Pajes' life must have changed that day, right? I mean, and I don't know, we've seen the Dodgers have guys that come in, hit a bunch at the beginning, right? Like James Outman, right? Just a couple of years ago, I think hit like 30 home runs or something, and I don't even know where he is now, right? I
For
don't
the
know.
Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to Pajes from here, right? Because we've seen year 2 is always pitchers start adjusting to you. He didn't hit great in the playoffs. I don't know what's going to happen to him from here, but he's going to be remembered, right? I mean, they could go ahead and put a statue of him outside of Dodger Stadium of making.
I thought that game was over because that ball was over Kike's head. There's no way he's going to make a Willie Mays catch on that play. And Pajes just ran him over and made the catch. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable stuff.
Hey, last thing I got, you mentioned Edwin Diaz. What other areas are the Dodgers going to try to tighten up before they head to spring training in the middle of February? They got any other things up their sleeve right now?
I mean, look, I think they could use an outfield bat, right? That said, I don't think they feel they have to. And this is what's interesting right now, right? Is that this Ohtani contract really has changed the way they do business, right? I mean, they are, look, they were always one of they've been the richest team in baseball, right? Or the most free spending team, maybe along Mets, I guess in recent years have kind of competed with them there. But, for the last decade or so, they have spent more than everybody. That said, it wasn't kind of this like, okay, we're just going to go out and get everything, right? It kind of felt like that at certain parameters. Every few years they would try to reset the luxury tax. And because Ohtani is deferring 68 of his 70 million, right? It not only frees up money in the short term, but they can now take that 68 million. It just has to be accounted for. It doesn't have to be sitting there like in cash in a bank account, right? So what they could theoretically do is take that 68 million and say, invest it with Guggenheim Partners, right? Which is the company that owns them. There've been some estimates that they could make $1 billion just reinvesting that money, right? And so now, look, they're not going to go out and spend, 400 or 500 million on Kyle Tucker. But if Kyle Tucker's market collapses, I think the Dodgers are going to be there in position to kind of scoop him up. And that's kind of what happened with Diaz, right? I mean, I think coming into this offseason, you're looking at him getting at least a 4-year deal, maybe even 5. All of a sudden, the Mets get Devin Williams instead. Okay, so they're out of there now. All of a sudden, the guy's market turns into, right, it goes from 4 or 5 years to 3 years, and the Dodgers are just right there. And they're kind of, again, I would compare them to the big stack at the poker table, right? And it's like they have enough money now to, okay, if something comes down, hey, you know what? You play hands, right? If you I don't know how many people play cards or viewers here, but, you can play more hands, right? You can take more chances, right? And what's interesting about this is that last year, right, they signed Tanner Scott. That did not go well. And I think most teams, Tanner Scott would be like an albatross of sorts, right? And even if they had money, the fact that they just spent it on a closer and it didn't work out would make them reluctant to go out and spend money on another closer. But the Dodgers, again, because of this Ohtani deal, they have the flexibility to do that, And so you look at the guys that are out there right now, right? It's I mean, Bregman's out off the board now, but it's you got Cody Bellinger, Kyle Tucker, and I could see the Dodgers maybe scooping up one of those guys again if their market were to collapse.
Okay, let me raise my hand here. I'm not the biggest Kyle Tucker fan in the world.
Yeah.
I think he's a good player. I do think maybe he's a little bit overrated. I also think the last 2 years he's been banged up quite a bit, missed a lot of time. If the Dodgers like Bellinger and Bellinger likes them, I'll be honest with you. Cody Bellinger's a better hitter now than he was with the Dodgers. He shortened his swing. He still can play the outfield. He could play first in a pinch if you needed to give Freddie Freeman a few extra days off as he gets deeper into his 30s. For me, that Bellinger can play in L.A. Yeah. We don't know if Kyle Tucker can play in L.A. Plus, he's been hurt a lot.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you, right? And actually, Freddie Freeman's under contract for just 2 more years, so you can use Bellinger in the outfield during those first 2, right? And if the deal's longer than that, then you can have Bellinger slide to first base, right? When Freeman retires. Now, I don't think though that's how they're viewing this, right? It's like which guy would we rather have? It's going to be whose contract is going to be kind of more palatable to us, right? I mean, I think both of these guys, are probably looking for anything from 7 to 10 years. I'm not sure that market will materialize for either guy.
I think those days are coming to an end. If you
they very much could, right? But I do think also, like you look at a team like the Blue Jays, right, that were just like right there, and they kind of see that they've been aggressive so far in the market. I could see them, right? Because Andrew Friedman famously said years ago, if you're rational on every free agent, you're going to finish third every time, right? And so you just need one, right? You just need one person willing to pay you or overpay you, and that's usually the way this thing works. Now, sometimes, and we've seen it, that market never materializes. And so to me, it's going to be the Dodgers that's just going to go with, I'm actually 100% with you on Kyle Tucker, okay? And do I want Kyle Tucker at 7 years, right? 10 years? No. Now, if you can get Kyle Tucker though at 3 or 4, then that changes the equation.
I like him better at 3, not at 4.
Yeah, right. But again, the Dodgers have so much money at this point, right? It's maybe you pay 4, you're going with the mindset, we're going to pay.
Kyle Tucker may come in here and hit 25 home runs, drive in 120 runs, and hit 320. I probably hit more home runs if he can stay healthy, but I don't know. There's something about that guy. I don't know. Maybe because he played for the Houston Astros. There's something I don't like about him. Yeah, and I'm sure he's a nice guy and all that. And he's pretty good, but it's not like he's Juan Soto.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And again, that said, right, there was zero chance of Juan Soto's market ever collapsing. Right. Juan Soto was always going to get whatever, I mean, that
the guy does put up numbers.
He does, right? And that's why, right? Juan Soto's a guarantee. And that's why those guys that get viewed as guarantees, those are the guys
kind of an odd duck, but man, he puts up numbers.
Yeah. And I think, kind of the next tier down, right? I've always thought that second tier of free agents is the hardest to shop for, right? Because there's a reason they're not first tier, right? Because if you view them as guaranteed production, they would be first tier. And so basically, like you said, either a team's going to take a chance and give them overpay because they're just desperate to get a player of that quality in, or the guy's market's going to collapse. And if the guy's market collapses, the Dodgers are just, they're Dennis Rodman hanging out under the backboard right now, right? if no one can make the shot, they're going to be there. And that's the thing, right? Is if you have to settle for a shorter deal, right? Whether it's Bellinger, whether it's Kyle Tucker, whether it's anybody, right? Edwin Diaz, whoever, and you're going to settle for a shorter range deal. Well, if I'm a player, I'm going to go to the place where I can win, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And the one thing, again, I think the Dodgers, one thing they've done, and going back to Dave Roberts, is a big part of this, is they do have a good reputation among players and the way they treat the players, the way they treat their families, just they feel kind of taken care of. And so, again, if no one's willing to pay Kyle Tucker what he wants to be paid, I would not be completely. Oh, Bo Bichette's another guy, right? That could end up figuring there, and again, Bichette too, right? They're question. That's the thing is, they are risks. I mean, you mentioned Tucker being hurt. Bo Bichette, right? Has had some injury issues and that have kind of affected him the last couple of years. These are gambles. Like, let's not make mistakes. Even in that 3 years, right? They're gambles. Like, you might not get what you're hoping out of these guys, but the Dodgers, again, being the big stack at the poker table, they can afford to, hey, you know what, whatever. Let's see how this goes. They can throw some chips in there without, that really affecting them and crippling them long term if things don't go right.
Dylan, I've taken far too much time. I know you're at the big California post office today. People are probably wondering who the hell's Dylan talking to. But hey, congratulations to you. Congratulations. I've never met him. I've had him on the program a few times over the years on radio. Congratulate Jack Harris. I'm sure you guys will hit the ground running on January 26th, and we'll look forward to catching up with you. One of those nights after you've written. Maybe or before you head out to a Cactus League game, we'll get you on. You can give us an update. But congratulations to you and the family, and I hope it goes as well as the rest of your career has gone to this point.
Thank you so much, Coach. It really means a lot. And like I said, I know I keep saying this every time I'm on, but I really do want to emphasize this that I remember listening to your show when I was in middle school, and it kind of made me think, like, man, wouldn't that be cool to like be one of those people that gets interviewed on the radio, and for you to the guy to be doing it a lot of the times has been one of the huge thrills of my career. So thank you so much for everything.
Be well, my friend, and congratulations.
Thank you.
There you go. One of the really, really great guys in the media. And I mean that. Great guy. You know what? He talks about, in his tweet when he took the job, not a lot of you are probably happy about this. Let me tell you, the people in the know, people that are part of sports in Southern California love Dylan Hernandez. He's fair. He never comes out with an agenda to try to bury. So he just states facts, and he gives you his opinion, and that's fine. That's what they're supposed to do. And I wish him the very best with the California Post. I'm excited about that. Hopefully, we get the California Post down here in San Diego. Okay, we're going to get out to questions. We talked a lot about the California Post. Wanted to get a little bit of an update on the Dodgers. We'll get into more Padres on Wednesday. And how about the Padres? Man, nothing going on really right now. Not a whole lot going on right now, other than signing some minor league guys and getting ready. They got fantasy camp finishing up over in Peoria. Okay, let's get out to Coach's Crew right now. See what we got here. Get a few questions in before we get out of here today. All right, Matt. Hey, Coach. I wasn't a big Devers guy. I'm not, by the way. But that's just bad roster management to trade Devers and have Bregman walk away like that for nothing. Yeah, I really thought, and if you missed it, Bregman signed with the Cubs. Now, Cubs are going to be a pain in the ass. Okay, they're going to be a playoff contender again. And, if they can tighten up a few more things with that pitching staff, Cubs are going to be tough. And that's another fly in the ointment, quite frankly, to the Padres. But Rafael Devers, not a big fan. Boston, I don't know what they're doing. I know they got all the young kids, and Marcelo Mayer is one of them, a kid from Eastlake High School who ended up having a surgery last year. I think it was on his wrist. Hopefully he's ready to go and going to, man third base. But man, I don't know what's going on with Boston. They don't seem to be wanting to spend the money that they did a few years back. But Rafael Devers, Giants, they got him. Now he's playing first base. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, not. I don't really know the game plan for the Boston Red Sox right now. Okay, what else we got here? Let's keep them coming. Casey King, good morning, Coach. With this new California Post, will they be just covering Southern California sports, or will they be covering all sports from Southern California, Northern California? Well, as Dylan said, they're looking to hire an NFL writer. They're working on hiring people to cover the Bay Area ball clubs. You may only have one Bay Area baseball team to cover here in a couple of years, and that'd be the San Francisco Giants because the A's are going to be moving over to Vegas. But as far as we know, they're going to cover the state of California. This is a big undertaking. This is a really big undertaking. But that's what Dylan said. And again, they're going to launch on January 26th. It'll be online as well as a printed copy each and every day, 7 days a week. That's pretty amazing. Be interesting to see who they hire to maybe cover the San Diego area. That will be very interesting. Okay, what else we got here? Keep them rolling. Okay, live questions. Austin Prather. Hi, Coach. I'm not a fan of Rob Manfred. I think 2027 MLB CBA negotiations could get really ugly. Might not have baseball at all that season. Both sides are going to dig in. Absolutely, Austin. I'll be honest with you. And I've been pretty honest about this all along. I think we're going to have a work stoppage. I think when the collective bargaining agreement runs out in December, and I don't know if it's December 1st or December 15th, I think the players are going to get locked out again. And what that means is they can't go to any of the stadiums or team facilities and work out, get treatment, deal with the trainers, going through rehab and all that. You can't come out, take ground balls, hit in the cage. They got to go out to the local high schools or colleges or wherever they can work out. So it's going to get ugly. Unless Rob Manfred and Tony Clark get on that now, and even if they get on it now, both sides are going to dig in, and it's going to be painful. It is going to be very, very painful because I do think there's a lot of animosity between Manfred and Tony Clark in the Players Association, and the owners. They want a lot of these funny money contracts to go away. So we'll see where it goes. But I totally agree with you, Austin. Thank you very much. Good question there. Okay. The fan's fan. If Preller isn't re-signed soon, what incentives does he have to make deals right now? Well, AJ's a competitor. He wants to win. And even if he weren't going to be here past this year, he wants to win in his final year. Just to show the ownership that they made a mistake by not giving him a contract extension. Now, we're led to believe he's going to get a contract extension, but it's gone on and on and on, and I don't know what the holdup is. Maybe they're going to announce it the start of spring training. We'll have a big press conference over in Peoria to announce AJ Preller signed a contract extension with the Padres. That could be. But right now, I'd kind of like to see it get done. But AJ, how about the thing I brought up? His name was being mentioned to become the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks NBA team. I could see him doing that. You know why? Because he's smart and he knows basketball inside and out. Makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of people probably, oh my God, are you going to go from baseball to basketball? He knows basketball inside and out. The fan's fan, thank you very much. Spring training can't come soon enough. What's your bold prediction for the opening day roster? Well, I don't know. I mean, we still got to figure out what we're doing at first base. It's going to be Gavin Sheets, Cronenworth, Bogarts, Machado, and then the outfield of Laureano, Merrill, and Tatis, Freddie Fermin behind the plate. I don't know who our designated hitter is going to be at this point in time. And I would think Michael King would probably be the opening day starter. They may go with Pivetta. They could go with Musgrove, but I would probably go with Pivetta, to be honest with you. I think he's earned it from what he did a year ago. See how spring training goes, and there's no setbacks. But I would think it's going to be Pivetta, King, and Musgrove the first 3 games. But I give you a pretty good rundown. Camposano's got to have a shot to make this ball club. If not, he'll probably end up somewhere else this year, and they'll bring somebody else in. But thank you very much. What else we got here? Okay, thank you for watching. Hey, I want to thank Dylan Hernandez. He was over at the Fox area. The Fox office is in LA, where the California Post is going to be. And I thought for you sports fans, you'd like to kind of know more about it, because I'm hearing about it, but I don't know a lot about it. But now we know it's coming out on January 26th. We know you can get it online. You can get it in print 7 days a week. Got caught up a little bit on the Dodgers. I always like to know our opponent. We got to get somebody on and talk about the Diamondbacks and the Giants and the Rockies. Rockies, man, they got all these guys that used to be in San Diego. Josh Burns, their general manager. Paul DePodesta is the head of baseball operations. We'll have to track down our man Thomas Harding here before they go to spring training and find out what the Rockies are doing this year. But hey, reminder, please subscribe to the channel. Again, we're on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Uh, please like, please share, please tell a friend. And if you'd like, be a part of our Gold Glove member package, $2.99 per month. Allows us to use a little bit of that money to pay our bills. So we'd very much appreciate that if you'd like to be a part of the channel and, support the channel. We'll be back in Wednesday morning. I'll have a lot to talk about. I'm going to the Southern California Broadcasters Luncheon tomorrow. My old buddy Steve Hartman being inducted into the Southern California Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Jim Hill of Channel 2 CBS going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I'll share with you on Wednesday how that went. And until then, for Jonathan Oliveri, our producer, director, Coach John Quintero, thanks for tuning into the John Quintero podcast on Facebook, X, and of course, YouTube. Bye bye.